Well, hello again, everybody. I'm sitting here in a very nice lounge of a hotel near Glastonbury, sitting with Steve. And hello there, how are you? Very well, thank you. So we're just about to start our conversation on Corona Conversations, as I'm calling them. And I've asked Steve just to begin by telling us a little bit about his background, how long he's been working in the area, whether he lives in the area. I don't even know if you actually live around here.
Yeah, about half an hour away.
Half an hour away. So I'm just going to hand over to Steve. Here he is.
Hello, so my name is Steve. At the moment I work at a hotel about 15 minutes away from Glastonbury, between Glastonbury and Frome. I've worked here for about a year. I've worked in food and beverage for about 2.5 years. Before that I was a sports instructor up north of the border in Scotland, teaching kids bows and arrows and all sorts of other things like that.
Teaching archery?
Yeah. I used to teach archery. It was a lot of fun. Very hard with little 5-year-olds, 5-6-year-olds. They'll turn around and be like, "Is this right?" You're like, duck for cover.
So you've trained in archery? Yeah,
I trained in archery, fencing. I used to be a lifeguard. Used to be a lifeguard trainer, swim teacher, all those sorts of things. I was sport and leisure before I moved into food and beverage, but the two sectors are very similar to themselves. It was just learning the overlay stuff, really.
No martial arts?
I did judo when I was younger, but I'm quite keen rugby player. Obviously, I haven't been able to play much this year when I've been working this job, like every Saturdays pretty much. But try and do it when I can. And very into all sorts of other things like motorsport. I'm into comics, and reading, and gaming.
What kind of books do you read?
I like to read Japanese mangas. I actually got Japanese mangas, which basically it's basically comic books, but they're reversed where they've been printed in Japanese and things.
Is that what your tattoo is?
Yeah, I've actually got a whole one up my arm of just like different bits and bobs and things like different characters and things like that. It's just, you know what I mean? It's
only on one arm, I notice.
Yeah, just on this arm, and I've got a few others scattered about here and there that I got over the years. But that's me. I'm from a small town called Tonbridge, which is in Wiltshire, which is about half an hour from here. Born and raised over here pretty much all my life, apart from the 2.5 years I spent up north, really.
So your accent is not West Country? No,
it's because my dad is from Sussex, and all of them are from like home county Sussex, and a lot of them live in Kent and things now. And my mum was from London, so even my friend Ash, who grew up literally 100 minutes down the road from me, I go over like, "Right, Ash, what are we doing today?" "Oh, I don't know, thought you play some football or something like that." It is really funny how you can live a few, like literally half a mile from each other, and your accents can be so different. Because I'd be growing up and I'm like, "Mum, can you pass the butter?" And she'd go, "Butter." It's literally been instilled in me since a young age. So yeah, it comes out in certain words. Sometimes I'll come out and I go, "Oh, that was very West Country," but it's just the twang, really, for me. Yeah.
So, when did you start working? I mean, how long were you working at your present job before the lockdown?
I started in late September, early October last year, so that would have been 3 months, 4 months, up until March, whenever it was. So just over 6 months, I'd say.
It sounds like you're a very social person. You're very affable. How did you react when you were told that you had to stay in isolation?
Well, it's funny that I was saying this to a few people a little while ago. It's the whole furlough thing, and whenever we went into lockdown, it was just before it started. Us here especially, we still had a hangover from Christmas. Like we didn't get, a Christmas party or anything for a break. We just, working solidly through. So a lot of us were like, "Oh, you know what? This is a needed little break." And it was really nice for about the first 3 weeks. And like I said just before we started recording, I booked a week off of holiday, and then came back to work, and 4 days later we went on lockdown, which I thought was quite funny. So I've had nearly 4 months off of work, and it's been really weird because, you know, being at home and everything, it's like, well, because I live over here when I work here, but obviously I went back home.
I forget, where is it that you live?
In Tonbridge.
Tonbridge.
Yeah, so I went back home to Tonbridge, was with my parent, with my mum, my dad, my brother, and my sister, who lives next door in the annex with her partner. And you know, everything was fine for like the first month and all that. And then after a while, it just begins to be, you know, like, you feel a bit claustrophobic. You feel like, oh, I want to go out. I want to get and do something. My only vice for however long was walking the dog. That dog got so many walks since lockdown began, and he's a big boy, so I can take him, you know, for hours on end, and he's happy as Larry. But yeah, it's a bit like, now coming back, it's really nice to be back. It's just need to get back in the swing of things a bit more, you know. Just feel like I got just a bit lazy, you know. 1 or 2 people, myself included, put on a few lockdown pounds, and just try and get back into the swing of things. Really,
you didn't try and keep fit by running and.
That's the thing. I'm very much like, I like playing sport. I got all my fitness from work, like beforehand. Like I would do, I'd be on my feet for 16, you know, sometimes 16 hours a day, you know, on some long days, and you do that, you know, 5 days. You know, if you imagine 5 days a week solidly of doing 11-hour shifts, which I would sometimes do, just that, you know, at the end of the week, you're like, no, I'm not going to the gym. I don't want to, you know, I want to rest and things. And but yeah, there's all sorts of things people do. Like I like I say, I like playing rugby. I like playing sport whenever I can, go to training and things. But we all motivate ourselves differently. Like as soon as lockdown began, one of my friends, he was just out on his bike every single day because he was one of those who needs to keep busy. Yeah, one of those people who like needs to keep busy or they go mad. He was literally on his bike every single day. He would do like 40 miles or more. You know, just like, you know, around the area to like Bristol and back and things like that.
And so, as regards the atmosphere in your own home, you didn't feel that it brought out sort of tensions in the family?
No, I mean,
everyone got on very well with each other.
I mean, I can't speak for everyone else's families, but my family, we're a bit arguey and nitty at each other all the time. Anyway, there's all love there, but you know how some families are just constantly bickering and things like that. I'm 26. My brother, who's 28, we still bicker like teenagers sometimes, just over little things. Like, just can't help it. Sometimes I say something like, no, that's completely wrong. You know what I mean? But
did you find yourself resorting to social media to get over the?
I mean, social media. I've been using it, trying to use it less and less, to be honest, as in the past couple of years, because it's one thing I find. I used to go on it quite a lot when I was younger. You know, so I used to be on Facebook every day, things like that. I still have it, you know, It's a good way of keeping contact with people. If you need to get in touch with someone quite quickly, boom, Facebook messages or stuff like that. But I find the whole social media, especially a lot of it, and during lockdown, it's people just want to, you only really see the snippets. It's like the snippets are, oh, have a look at how good my life looks, but it's all, do you know what I mean? If you're having a good time and you're doing fun things, the way I see it, you don't need to put them online to enjoy yourself. It's just some people, not everyone, but some people, they just put things online because they want people to see them, like, oh, where are you, darling? Oh, that looks lovely, you know, things like that. Well, how'd you do that? But no, there wasn't really a lot of that during lockdown because everyone was stuck inside. So for the first few weeks, me and some friends, we were taking turns to write a quiz, host a quiz and all of that. And that didn't get old for we did that for 4 weeks until it started getting a bit old and boring. But all sorts of things really. I went for a stage where 1 week I was on the phone to my mate Deck all day, who I went to school with, and we'd be playing Xbox, and we'd be like, oh, this is great, I haven't had this much free time to play games since we were teenagers, you know. And we were literally feeling like this reminds me of when we were 10 years ago in year 11, we would all be on Xbox the night before school, messing around, and then we would all be up at school. But that was the only difference really.
Right.
But it was strange just having that much time off. I've never ever had that much time off in my life, because if you think about it, when you go to school, you get 6 weeks off in the summer. So I would have had that when I was younger. But as soon as I left college, when I was 18, I went straight to work after, 2 weeks after I finished college, I had a full-time job. So I was working, I've always been working. And So yeah, it just felt really weird to have that much time off. And my dad being at home every day, but he was working every day from home. And it's like, well, what can I do? I can't. There's only so many times I can clean the kitchen and things at home, which I did for the first, first couple of days or couple of weeks after lockdown. I'd go down like, the kitchen's a mess. Give it a good clean, like I would be cleaning at work here. And they would be like, bloody hell, when you clean. I'm like, yeah, that's how bored I am. But that got boring eventually as well. So.
Did you find yourself getting into any kind of reflection or meditation or?
No, I mean, I will never knock it or disagree with anyone who likes that sort of stuff, because different things work for different people. Me personally, I'm not a very spiritual, religious person, but that's only because I went to Catholic school, and I think me and a few of my friends were in the same sort of thinking. Is sort of when you go to school for 11 years, you have to say prayers however many times a day, and you get these things forced down your throat. It just makes you not resent it, but sort of like, I think I remember I was 13 or so when I was in a class. I got sent out of an RE lesson for basically telling my teacher, I think this is a bit nonsense. So sure, there must be some middle ground to this and things.
Do you remember what the subject was that you thought was?
I think we were talking about. I think some of it was like philosophy, because we did 1 year where I always think. I can't remember. Someone said to me once that, "Oh, Jesus didn't exist." I was like, "Oh, no, he was an actual person. You can't dispute he was an actual person, but the whole whether there's a son of God thing is subjective to people." And it's like, and the way I look at it is like the Bible, something written however many thousands of years ago, copied by people. There's going to be mistakes. There's going to be misinterpretations of things, and there's a lot of things that. Not people here, but you see people online, people in America, they spout the Bible for their reasons for this and for that. And it's like, hang on, it's sort of, people tend to cherry pick those sort of things. They're like, I'm going to cherry pick this because it says abortion's bad. I'm going to cherry pick this because gay people are bad. But it's like, oh, I'll leave that in there because, I know we can kill in the name of God, or, all those sort of things. So I'm going on a bit of a rant now, but...
No, it's interesting that you remember that it was at the age of 13.
It was something like that. It was. I could just remember the more and more you sort of read these things, you just tend to question it. I mean, I kind of like the whole philosophy is I'm not quite an agnostic, but I quite like the philosophy is, couldn't God be the answer to how, not the answer to why? Because people like to think, oh, well, I was actually watching a video on YouTube the other day. It was called Middle Ground. So they get like 3 people who are on one side of an argument, 3 people from one side of an argument. They get them to have discussions and things. And that one was about flat earthers and they had some scientists. And one of them who literally said, oh, no, God says that the world was created in 6 days and this, that. So that's what we have to believe. And it's sort of like, and he was calling that fact. A scientist was trying to explain to him a curvature of the earth and how we know we can use this using tools, and there's facts, and there's evidence for how many thousands of years. And he just go, no, that's just your opinion. But he'll quote something from the Bible and call it fact. So I find that a bit hypocritical sometimes, but it is what it is. I have a friend of mine who the past within the last 2 years, sort of battled alcoholism and drug abuse and things, and for him, the sort of thing that sort of sorted him out was meditation, discovering meditation and things like that. And and I know that what's his name is quite famous guy, Russell Brand. He got quite into he's quite a famous atheist, but he got quite into those sorts of things, didn't he? Like meditation, because it's very different. I remember we had a chapel in school. It was an upstairs chapel with like beanbags and things, and they would do like meditation sessions in there. And but I remember a meditation session, and the way they do it is just like, I remember just falling asleep. I remember being told off because I fell asleep because all the kids were just every now and then. But I'll never knock it if anyone wants to try it. If people want to believe something, and some people think there's a lot of people who think the pandemic is either well, I think there's a few sides to the argument. There's people who think it's just a natural thing that happens. That's what I'm on. It's just one of those things that's happened, and just a huge bummer. And there are other people who think, oh, this is God's way of doing this, and culling the planet, and all that and the other. And there are others who think it's a big conspiracy. If you've heard of that, there's a lot of people who think, and I've been seeing some of it with the whole things of I'm saying this while wearing my mask, people not wanting to wear masks. You see things on Facebook and people saying, I can't remember where I saw it, but it was ridiculous. It said, COVID is I don't know anyone who's had COVID. I know hardly anyone who's died. Why should I have to wear a piece of cloth over my mouth when it's blah, 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 blah. It's like, no one's asking you to, do anything dangerous. They're literally asking you to wear a piece of cloth over your mouth like I am now. You just get used to it. Earlier on, I went to have a drink and I did this nearly through my mask because I forgot I was wearing it. But that's what our new normal is, isn't it? Yeah. So I think the whole people thinking it's conspiracy, they either think it's an American conspiracy or a Chinese conspiracy. Either or.
I find the Chinese conspiracy rather convincing.
Funny enough, I was reading an article today in the paper about it was about the 5G towers and everything, about China's influence and that, and you can sort of see that. But this whole article was about how their foreign policy is basically be our friend or else, or you do anything bad or anything we don't like, then forget it. And it even went on to how because they own a lot of share, they've got a lot of control in like how things are printed, even how Western books and media is printed, and things like certain words, like phrases that might not be against what they call the CCP, or where they are, or whatever their government's called. And I just found that a bit quite astonishing, really. But yeah, it's a strange old world.
There's a conspiracy theory that the virus was designed in a laboratory as part of the biological warfare research. And they tried to make it look as if it was a virus.
I don't know. I think people who like to cook up these conspiracies think people are a lot smarter than they are. That's, my reasoning. But the only thing I think is quite, I don't know, I think it's quite, ironically funny is that, and I think which spreads into the idea of a lot of people think it's a conspiracy, where there was a pandemic this year, 2020, Spanish flu, what was that, 1919, 1920. I think in literally 1720 or 1820, there was something else as well. And I remember people drawing conclusions that last year going, jokingly going, we might be due a pandemic or whatever, guys. So then we get one. So I thought that was a bit, but I think I'm a very skeptical person, where a lot of people, they might believe in ghosts, they might believe in this, and I'm very skeptical. I'm like, yeah, okay. A lot of people are like, how do you know there's not aliens in the sky? I'm like, okay, yeah, sure. So even if someone said to me, I think this is a conspiracy, I'd be like, yeah, okay, mate, sure, why not? It's like, let you have your opinion, you know what opinions are like, so everyone can have one, it's fine.
And would you give any kind of advice to people who have had a very difficult time psychologically, emotionally?
I mean, I can speak from experience that I've been there personally, not through the epidemic or pandemic, but everyone does go through those stages, whether it's family members who might pass on, get ill, or something might happen to you personally or a loved one or everything. And it's, when I went through it myself, I thought I couldn't talk to anyone or reach out to anyone. I thought, and the same thing goes through, and everyone's mind's like, I think I'm bothering everyone. I think I'm useless. I don't want to come across as, I didn't want people to see me in that sort of way. But then when
this is how many years before this crisis?
Oh, yeah. To me, this happened about a year ago for reasons I won't go into. But it was a few months where I thought I've never been depressed before, and that was the first time I really, really felt it. But I reached out to a couple of friends of mine, a few friends, and it was sort of like, I was quite surprised at how much they wanted to help and wanted to do right then and there. And someone said to me, what I'll say to everyone, if you treat others how you want to be treated, they'll do the same to you, because I've been in the same situation where I've had to cheer friends up or getting them out of a hole or everything else like that, you know. I remember someone saying, my friend Layla sent to me, it was like, it's so weird seeing you like that, because I've always thought, you know, I've never thought something like that would happen to you. And I was, you know, not in a bad way or anything. I was like, oh, fair enough. But then I did manage to bounce back. I bounced back fairly quickly, what some people would say. I stopped taking antidepressants, all that. I thought, no, it's not working. I was not going to bother.
How long did you take antidepressants for?
About 2 months.
2 months.
Yeah, you're supposed to take them for 6 weeks to see if there's an effect. But I think it was something like that. But I wasn't feeling any different, so I just, because some people work, some people doesn't, you know.
Yeah.
But you know, to anyone else who's feeling like that, who has gone through that, you know, it's so prevalent these days. And one thing I saw about that is it was an article. It was about why depression and these sort of things seem so much more prevalent these days than they were before. And part of it, what it said was, we have a lot of things fulfilled for us. We need food. We can go on the other end of the phone, or go to the supermarket. Boom, we've got some food. We want something to drink. We want this. We want a bit of technology, a bit of that. We've got nearly everything we need. And it was to do with humans back from, you know, 100 years ago or whatever. We'd be working all day or doing all this just to get one plate of food at the end of the day, or, you know, to do a crop or to do this, and we had to work so much harder and everything. So it's like, because we're a lot more fulfilled, we feel like we feel a bit empty, or like, you know, there's nothing to achieve or there's nothing to do. So me, you know, everyone really, there are certain aspects where I struggle to motivate myself or to do things, and yeah, it's not always a bad thing. You know, for me, it's a combination of my short attention span and, you know, other things with finding things enjoyable. So I don't like going to the gym. I just get bored. I'd rather play, you know, go run around the field and play football, or go, you know, go play tennis or go for a cycle or something, you know, something like that. So to keep me more occupied, where it's just repetitive and those sort of things. But that's me. That's just me. You know, I've got some friends who, my old friend Dean I used to work with, who, when I worked at a leisure centre, a gym, he's about 5'4". You can imagine this guy, but huge, absolutely huge. He would love just staying in the gym, and he would be in there he'd be in there all day if he could. You'd have to tell him, like, mate, you're off now, go away, you've been in the gym for 3 hours, let someone else use it. Because there's so much a thing as overtraining and these things as well, like that, which some people don't realise. But yeah.
And what do you think about the difference between the sort of life that you had before the crisis and the life that you're looking forward to enjoying now? Do you feel as if it's changed you in any way? Or outlook on life, your understanding of values, things you put importance on?
Yeah, I'd say it has and it hasn't. I mean, what a lot of people struggled during lockdown was they couldn't go see like their grandmother or their cousins and things like that. Whereas that doesn't personally affect me, because I've always lived far away from my extended family. So we'd always see each other maybe once, twice a year, 3 times a year if we're lucky. So in that sort of thing, it's fine. I know part of it has been a little bit hard on my dad's, only because my grandmother, who has dementia, she just before the crisis was due to move to a different care home, because my auntie wasn't happy with the current one she was in. There was one in Kent. You probably know it if I could find out the name of it, but I don't. They moved to a different one and found it and all that. But obviously, when the whole thing kicked off, it took a long time for it to do. And they were really worried that, especially the place which the granny was at before, they were really concerned that they weren't getting the proper care and things that they needed. And I can tell that put a bit of stress on, not just my dad, I knew like my auntie and all that was stressed as well. But it was one of those, because she's deteriorated quite a lot in the past few years. They really wanted to, you know, start shell of a woman, shell of her former self sort of thing. But I think that was very hard for them to sort of, you know, look after her and things during lockdown, because my auntie, who's a nurse, would go there every day to go see her and go make sure she was all right with things. And it was the period where she couldn't see them for a while, and they were really worried. That quite stressed them out. But in terms of myself personally, I don't know, because for me, and this, as it's immature or nihilist, not pessimistic as it sounds, whatever. But for me, like, if I had a free day here, free day there, I'd bring up my friends from down the road and be like, oh, do you want to go to the pub, or do you want to go this, you want to do that? And during lockdown, you couldn't do any of that sort of stuff. The only sort of stuff you could sort of get away with when it was really strict was maybe going out for a walk or doing whatever. So for me personally, it was just not being able to socialise with people and see people in person and things like that. And when you're at home and things like that for ages, I spent a bit of time. I was like, right, I'm going to reread this. I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that. And eventually, I was like, what am I going to do today? It's like, just another day. Yeah.
And did it have any effect upon your perception of the environmental crisis, global warming?
Well, I mean, it was all since lockdown happened, it's reduced our footprint all over the world.
Did you notice what happened to virgin nature around you?
I mean, obviously not around me where I was. I mean, I live like literally go out my back garden, and behind it there's a field where they grow crops in anyway. So I've always had some open space to go out to when I was younger. But it's more things you'd notice on reading online, like the waters in Venice being a lot more clearer, or some cities in China you can actually see the sky again, without any smog, things like that. And it just goes to show that if we really wanted to, we could curb.
But that's the question. What is it that will make people?
I don't know. I mean,
for the better in that respect.
People won't know. That's the horrible thing about humans, and also the great thing about us is our individualism. So to everyone, they're the centre of the world, they're the centre of attention, and these sorts of things. But I think the things that go to prove it is if you, for instance, ask someone's opinion on Brexit, either there or there, and it's a really dividing issue. And a lot of people, myself included, before the vote, I'm not afraid to say this, whatever. Before the vote, I was like, well, I'm going to vote out because I think this, I think that. And it was only when, it was. I remember what made me do it even more was when my girlfriend at the time, she just said to me, "You're stupid, you're wrong." And because of the way she said it and the way we all kicked off an argument, I was like, screw you, I'm going to vote this anyway, sort of thing. And I know I did it I have my other reasons as well and all that, obviously. But it was only not a lot of people open up their minds to think, hang on a minute, I was wrong about that. Let's see what I can do about that. And the climate change is sort of the thing where people need to realise, well, what you're not living your life badly. It's just you can live it a bit differently. And there's just certain things you can do that are more ethical and the way things are helped. For instance, we don't sell or serve any straws here, not even the biodegradable ones. Where it's like, nah, you know what, it's just no straws. I think get rid of them, the better. We're looking to get metal straws, but you don't want to know how expensive they are for what they are. It's ridiculous. But just things like that, knowing a lot of it's education, knowing how to recycle, knowing what is good, what is bad. But I think there was a time you would probably remember better than me, but I just remember, when I was a child in the early 2000s, I think there was a very much culture of people just throw away, don't give, people are like that now, but I'd like to think it's not as bad. But I would quite like to go out and do, people. I've seen friends of mine before, go pick up litter on beaches and things like that. Do their part. Things like I would if I lived closer to the beach or had time and things like that. But a lot of it is sort of our throwaway nature at the moment.
Do you think the government's handling of the crisis has enhanced its reputation and popularity or diminished it?
If this government has the only thing I can say that I like what this government has done is has completely nothing to do with COVID, is they said they would try and help people in Hong Kong, things like that. But I don't have any respect for this current government. Even before the election, Boris Johnson is a known liar. He has lied through his teeth. The party have lied through their teeth. They spent 12 weeks clapping for carers, and then they tell them they've got to pay for parking at work, won't bother looking into a pay rise, but we'll clap for you every Thursday. That'd be fine. So no, I could go on and on about my opinions on the government, which are some of it could be seen as right, some of it could be seen as wrong. I've got my own opinions, but I think the way they handled the crisis and the way they're handling it now is still a bit. Should have locked down a few weeks earlier when other European countries were doing it. Could have avoided a few more deaths. But hindsight's always 2020, isn't it? So you can't give them too much stick for that. But I'd say we haven't done an amazing job. We've done an okay job. I mean, compared to the fiasco in America and things like that, but it's kind of unfair to paint them all with the same brush because you've got 50 states, which is essentially like they've run like countries and things, so they're all going to be slightly different. But there's so much more, it's like the whole, I don't understand. I mean, even me working in this industry, I don't understand why you would open pubs and restaurants before you would open leisure centres and gyms
and bookshops
and all sorts, and it just and this is whole while it was locked down and everything, and there'd be lots of us who'd stayed in for weeks, and as soon as the weather got nice, tons of people flocked to the beaches and things like that. And I thought,
what did you think of that?
Well, I mean, I personally don't like the beach, but I don't like getting sand in my toes and my shoes and things like that. And I don't like salt water and everything like that. But I thought, it's just I would say it's surprising, but it's not. It's just typical, it's just people are people. People are selfish, It was like we had those few nice days in April while we were still quite high on lockdown. There's people in parks and things like that, or people taking the piss when they're out exercising or everything. But it's people would do. It's one of those. Just I'm the same, If someone says don't push that button or don't do that, the first thing I'm like, I kind of want to do that, But that's just people.
Yeah. So, do you have any advice that you would give? You mentioned earlier that you've been through something of a depression a year ago, but as regards a more sort of fundamental change of attitude towards the environment, towards caring for each other, how would you feel about just giving some advice to the person who's listening, who really wants to actually see the silver lining around this particular cloud, wants to make a positive change? Apart from the things that you've mentioned, is there anything else that comes to mind?
I mean, it's one of those. I mean, it's a lot easier said than done. That if you want to go and do something, you should do it. But I think sometimes you just need to give yourself a push, or someone needs to give you a push. For me, once it was back when I was working as a lifeguard years ago. I wasn't happy for a few months with everything. I was thinking of, should I hand him a note? Should I not? I don't know. I haven't got anything lined up. Blah blah blah. Just one day, I don't know what it was. So I just went, right, that's it. Typed up a notice, went bish bish bosh, handed it in. And I'm really glad I did, but it was I had to push myself to do it, or it took me a while to do it. It's a bit like, someone who's scared of heights on top of a diving board. You look down, you think, oh, I don't know if I could do that, or I don't know if I could do this, but once you jump and then you do it, and you realise that wasn't so bad, or I could maybe do that again. So I don't know. I'd say to people is sort of as cliche and as it sounds, sort of believe in yourself a bit more. And it's so hard to do. So I wake up some days and I think, oh, I'm useless. Who cares? Why should I believe in myself and that? But it's just be confident in yourself. I think if you come across, and sometimes it's double-edged sword, you can come across as confident and you could be on the inside or whatever. Robin Williams, great example.
Actually, I don't know about that.
Well, Robin Williams was what Robin Williams was like, one of the funniest guys, a really good comedian and all that, but he suffered for so many years on the inside through depression and things, and not a lot of people knew, and obviously because it sort of came to light after when he died, when he killed himself, didn't he?
No, I don't know that.
You're not.
So he killed himself after having fought against this mental illness?
I think so, yeah. Look it up about Robin Williams. I know, I think he hung himself. Don't quote me on that. He might have, he might not have, but I'm pretty sure he took his own life. But it was very much like, sometimes they say, the people who are the most happiest might be suffering a bit more. But going back to what you said about, let's not talk about that again, to motivate people, motivation is, I don't know, it's like you can't define motivation. Different people are motivated by different things and through either what they believe or what they think is right. If you look 1,000 years ago, people thought it was just to go on a war to reclaim the Holy Land and kill a bunch of people, or do these things, and where years and years go on, people's perspectives change of what's important and what we should be doing in that. And I think now we're at such a unique time, would you say? Yes, there's a lot of war and things that goes on, but they say it's the most peaceful times we've ever lived in without, major wars. But yeah, I hope not. Nothing happens. But we're in whereas it's 100 years. I was talking to a friend of mine 100 years ago. I was born in 93. So if I was born 100 years ago, we were like, well, we would have been in the trenches. We would have had to do this. We've had to do that. And those sort of things put you in perspective that we're here to do, I don't know, you say we're here to do good and things, but you're here to just live your life. You only get one life, unless you're Buddhist and you believe in reincarnation, but you only get one life. Go out and live it, there are things that make everyone sad, anxious, nervous and things like that, but it's how, a lot of it is also how you pick yourself back up, they've got that saying in the army, don't you? They break you down, they sort of build you up. You don't have to be in the military to be broken down and brought back up in a good, positive way. I haven't heard that. That's how a lot of my friends who've been through the training is basically the whole purpose of training is break you down, build you back up. They'll do things to say, little things demoralize you and things like that, make you feel like you're really small. And then they build up your character from that through all the training and everything you do. We could have another conversation. We could have a whole different conversation about that. And I think it's weird actually. I was watching a series ages ago. If you ever heard of it, people might have heard about it. It was called Bad Lads. From about 20 years ago, or however many years ago. And they took people and they got them to do 1950s style national service. And a lot of the people on that, they were interviewing before, they were like, repeat offenders, this, that, and the other. A lot of them, when they're in their third or fourth week, and they're reflecting on everything, they're like, why don't they do more stuff like, why don't they do more stuff like that? Sort of builds up your characters, your discipline, everything else like that. This has gone a very weird place from the question you asked to now talking about the idea of national service. But yeah, it is interesting because the way the priorities are different. If they brought back, say, national service, there'd be a huge, I'm not doing it, all that. Whereas however many years ago they didn't have a choice. I think, I don't know.
Discipline is not so highly valued these days. Everyone, when you said earlier that individualism is rampant.
Yeah.
Individualism is at the opposite end of discipline.
Yeah.
But if you believe in a higher cause and you think that you have to train your character for that cause, you realize that you just can't give yourself the luxury of not feeling well, depressed, or this or that. You want to do something, you have to discipline yourself. As opposed to do what you want to do, lack of discipline, and it leads you off into this individualism.
Yeah, and that's it. I think achieving your goals and everything in life is it's just a huge mix of everything, isn't it? Huge mix of being self-motivated, having your discipline, but also having a good sort of personality or this or that and the other. And it's just sort of all those things that sort of go into one, sort of make a decent person, and there are a lot of people out there, like I've got my friend Alicia, she did a lot of campaigning in Nottingham when she was at uni. She's just come back for Black Lives Matter. She was organising like protests and things out there, and it's I think that has brought out a lot of would you say animosity or things towards other people. I just think it's I fall in the middle, or no, not in the middle, because I believe like I was having this conversation where the whole, the statue that pulled down in Bristol, right? Was it right or wrong? And in my opinion, it was, well, what they did wasn't necessarily right, but what they did, they say, they haven't torn down statues all across the country. One statue got torn down, but as a result of that one statue got torn down, people doing something illegal, which, yeah, it was illegal. But because of that, legislative stuff went through, and they went, hang on a minute, let's review all the stuff that we've got around the UK, because clearly there is a bit of, it does rub people off the wrong way, and they're like, we're going the right way, just not quite quick enough. I'd say my mum was used to be, I asked my mum an opinion on these protests and that, because believe it or not, you never look at me with my red hair and things like that, but my mum is actually, her father was half black. Really? So my mother with a black father and an Irish mother grew up in East London in the 60s, 10 of them. In a family of 10, they used to get a lot of abuse and stick and things like that, people shouting these sort of things at them. So she's been there. She was the person I asked, what does it feel like when someone calls you, like when they call you the N-word and things? And she has a really good sort of, my mum's a tough lady and all that. She has a good persona to her, but not everyone is like her. She's like, a word's a word, a gollywog's a gollywog and all that sort of stuff doesn't bother me. It's like the sort of stuff that bothers me is the sort of stuff, the violence and all that sort of stuff that would happen. But again, there's not a lot we can do here for something that's going on in London, also going on in America, things like that. You can only try and live right, try and do the right thing.
Do you encounter much in the way of racism in this area?
A bit. Not. I've seen my fair share of people who I didn't really think for like that, and I've seen their opinions and things on Facebook. As a whole, I think our area, we're very much, farmer area, I remember going to school and there was only, we only had 3 or 4 black people in our year. And it's like, it's just how it was, it's not the same as the city, but I'd say we're people like I don't want to paint the same brush with all people my age and all that, but sort of people my age with a lot more tolerant and liberal with these sort of things. Like, you ask someone, who's my sort of age, do they care if someone's gay, black, white, Asian, blah, blah, blah? It's like, no, you don't care. Someone can still be a homosexual and they could be annoying. I'd still think they were a twat, but that's nothing to do with them being that. It's like, if you're a good person or a good person to me, I will like you. If you're a bit of a crappy person, I won't like you. It has nothing to do with the colour of skin or anything else. It's just, I may not believe in God anymore, but I still believe in that phrase, be good to others, love your neighbour, blah, 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 all those things. Yeah, live a good life. You don't have to believe that Jesus was the Son of God to think, actually, some of those teachers in there are good. Not all of them, but some of them,
Well, that's a really good point to end on, the teachings about being good, about being decent, being honest, being disciplined, and developing good character traits. That's an excellent point to end on, Steve. I'm very grateful, and we'll stop it here.
Yeah, no problem.
And we'll probably carry on a bit after this informally. Thanks very much.